this clock from Barry, and let's see what we got here. Okay, no hands. Take the back off. Okay, we have normally you're working on a clock, the first thing you do is take the hands off, but there are no hands with this one. I don't know if there's any little piece missing here, the mouthpiece for the horn. Neither bird is there. There are 3 bellows for the cuckoo and 1 for the quail. So the way we have to take these apart, the bellows are held in with a single screw and a small brad in each case. Let me get 'em. Okay, so we will begin by taking the bellows out. Take a screw out here. Brad, and this one has a wire on it that fell out on its own. Let's see what condition it's in. That one is okay. Okay. And this Brad gonna come out. Geez, where's the screw? Oh, it's been turned in so far it's compressed the wood, it's down in a hole. Slot in it is kind of messed up. Okay. Well, we got it. This one doesn't have wire. Take it out. Somebody call that the right, that's the left. This is the wire that lifts the cuckoo. Okay, that seems okay. And then we have the quail left in there. Brad out of that one. Take the screw out of there. Okay, that comes out. So when this goes off, it goes something like that. Okay. And now all I gotta do is get the movement out. That's 4 screws. Man, I can't see. I gotta get my other glasses. Oh, these screw holes are all a mess. Holy smokes. I can fill those screw holes a little bit. Recut them. Okay, we'll work this out. There's our movement. Okay. I have to clean the inside of the case. There it is. Set that back over here. Okay. Now let's take a look. See what we've got here. Let's take a look. This must have been out of the case recently because it's got fresh oil in it. Some of these pivots are maybe a little iffy, but I don't know. It's not out of out of normal for a cuckoo clock. Definitely got some rusty pinions. Okay, let's check this one. Boy, it's interesting. This mechanism on the quail side is, yeah, this one pretty much too, reminiscent of the railway clock way of doing things. Right now I'm just going to spend some time looking at this and making sure I understand how it works. When it comes to the cuckoo side runs and works almost identically to the old cast railroad clocks, in that they have a count wheel in the same position on the back with a small gear that runs the count wheel, and on the inside there is just like in the railroad clocks, there's a brass cam, and instead of having a brass lever that rides that cam, it has a steel lever, but it works exactly the same way. The only difference here is that instead of just having a cuckoo, you have the quail on the other side, and the cuckoo is not tripped by a lever. Ouch! Ooh, you booger. Wow. That is one sharp wire sticking out of there. Man, where did that come from? I gotta find that one because I don't want to hit it again. Losing blood today. Wow, I don't know what wire I caught there, but whatever one that was, it was really sharp. It might have been this thing here. That's pretty sharp. I'm gonna have to file that off a little bit. Unlike a normal cuckoo clock, the cuckoo is not tripped by a lever on the minute hand. The cuckoo is tripped by a lever that extends over to the quail side, so that the quail runs first, and there are some pins here, one that corresponds to the half hour and one that corresponds to the hour, that lifts this lever, and that is what trips the cuckoo. So the quail will will sound off first, and on the 1/4 hour and the 3/4 hour it will not affect the cuckoo at all. The quail is tripped by the lever that's pushed up by the pins on the back of the minute hand. So the quail is tripped by this lever on every 1/4 hour. On the 1/4 hour, the half hour, 3/4 hour, and the full hour. And then the quail in turn has 2 pins, and it trips the cuckoo then only on the half hour and the hour. And then there are 2 cams involved, or 2 basically what you might call count wheels. You've got the one for the quail that sounds the 1/4 hour, then it sounds the half hour, here's the 1/4 hour, then the half hour, 3/4 hour, and then the hour. And after it's done with the hour, this pin then trips it for the trips the cuckoo, as well as this one tripping it for the half hour. So that's the operation, and basically there's almost 2 identical trains set up for the cuckoo side and the quail side, both controlled by count wheels. And so we go from the minute hand through this lever, which sets the quail in motion with a typical warning wheel. Only this is kind of interesting, on the quail side, the warning wheel consists of actually two pins. One toward the inside is the stop pin, and one toward the outside of the wheel that's the actual warning pin. So a little bit different on that 3rd wheel. And everything seems to be in working order. I took some notes as to the timing to note the positions of the gears, so that when it's put back together, why it'll all work right. So we're about ready to take it apart, clean it, and then we'll evaluate for bushings. For those of you who don't understand how this cuckoo quail thing works, or for that matter maybe how any strike mechanism works, or chime mechanism, it all starts right here on the front. We take off the hour tube, we take off the minute tube. On the back here are 4 pins. So as this rotates, this is a minute hand, as this rotates once an hour, these 4 pins represent every 15 minutes. So every 15 minutes, when one of those pins is riding up here, riding on this shaft, let's start lifting this lever. Okay? That lever is attached to 2 other very important pieces on the inside. One, it's lifting, you can't see, maybe you can see, way inside. Let me see if I can get a better view of it. Attached to that same arbor is a lever on the inside. Probably just barely see it moving. It's going to be lifted upward. And what it's going to do is going to move up and get in the way of this next to last wheel that has a pin on it. Alright, that pin is currently stopped by a lever. And we're going to do 2 things. We're going to remove that lever out of the way so that the pin is released, and that pin is going to want to start rotating. So it rotates about half a turn, and this is being lifted. It's also lifting a piece of wire in there that's going to get in the way of that pin that's been released. and is going to hold it until this wire on the front falls off of that that pin that is lifting it. As soon as that drops off of there, then that pin is going to get released, and it's going to run through the quail cycle and call once or twice or 3 times or 4 times, depending on what quarter hour it is. And then this little lever here is going to drop down back in front of that pin, and it's going to stop that quail call. What keeps that lever up, that brass lever up, that you can see moving right there inside, that brass one, what keeps that up is a cam, a little cam in there. You can just barely see it, and that's when that cam falls back into a slot, then the cam is low enough to stop the pin on that wheel, and that stops that cycle. Right, so it's just a matter of this lever on the front is lifted by a pin on the back of the minute hand every 15 minutes. When this lever gets lifted, it does 2 things. It lifts that brass lever off of the cam, and it moves a wire in front of the pin that's going to be released to stop it. That's called going into warning. Then when this drops off of the pin on the front, it releases this pinwheel or warning wheel. It runs until this little guy drops back into the slot. Well, what's going to keep that cam out of the way is this little thing. The cam can't drop, or the lever can't drop back into that cam until this lever right here, this whole little cam here, controls how many times the quail calls. It was once at the quarter hour, twice at the half hour, 3 times at 3/4 hour, 4 times on the hour, and then it can stop. So you just look at that sequence, just a couple of levers, a cam, and then the count wheel. Now, once the quail is done, at the quarter hour it's all over. Thing shuts off and waits another 15 minutes, we go through the cycle again. At the half hour, the quail is going to call twice, and then what's going to happen is this pin right here on the half hour is going to lift this lever. Okay? That in turn is going to start the same kind of sequence going over on the strike side, on the cuckoo side, as what just happened on the quail side. It's going to start lifting this lever, it's going to release another lever inside, and it's going to move another wire inside on this train to move in the way of a warning wheel over here, or warning pin over here. And then when this falls off of this pin, then the cuckoo can go ahead and cuckoo. So the quail will run through its cycle, release, and then the cuckoo sounds. Then the next 15 minutes, a 3/4 sound goes off. You just get 3 calls of the quail, and there's no pin to lift this lever, so it doesn't cuckoo. Then in the hour, the quail calls 4 times. This pin will lift this lever and go through the cycle over here, lifts it enough to put it into warning. When it drops off this pin over here, then the cuckoo calls. That's how the whole cycle is, and then we start all over again at 15 minutes. That's how the whole cycle is controlled. So as we take this apart, we're going to be able to see how all of that works. So in essence, let's go through this again, just so you understand. It looks kind of messy and complicated, but you got to break it into 3 parts. If this were just a cuckoo clock, this side wouldn't be here. You just have those gears in the middle, which is called the time train or the run train, and it would keep time, and then this set of gears would make it cuckoo. Okay, so you have two sets of gears on a cuckoo clock. You get the one that runs the time and the one that runs the cuckoo. All we're doing here is we're adding another set of gears to make the quail side run. So if you break it into this, there's really 3 trains of gears. It's not just one massive train of gears. You've got this train, which is the quail, this train in the middle, which is the time, and this train over here, which is the cuckoo. So as we take this apart, I'm going to keep 3 trains. There are 3 containers back here. One for the cuckoo gears, one for the time gears, one for the quail gears. We're going to take this all apart and then we're going to clean it. Okay, count wheel. Okay. Okay, we can get these. What you do, take these out, just turn them. You get them to the slot. You just got to find where the spring is attached. Hole. So the hammer's on top. And that's on the strike side. What in the heck did they do with that spring? And they've got to tighten them out. Yeah. A little rust. Okay. Let's see what else will come out. All you gotta do to get those out is you flip them over. Turn this over till these pins line up. And then they slide out. Yeah, see there's rust on those arbors. I don't like that. Get a long one. Same thing, yeah, the arbors are rusty. What's on them arbors? This one I don't know if I can get out. Now you can see that. This is quail side now I'm looking at here. Here you can see that lever in there? It drops onto a cam. See that cam? And that black lever. Drops into that cam. And that right there is what stops it. That's in that slot so that the pins on that gear there at the top. Right in there, there's some pins. I should be able to see them if I move this, huh? See the pin? Here's the pin that needs to be. It's used to stop this thing. Okay, it goes against the end of that black lever that rides on that cam. That's what the stop position is. Anyway, we'll continue taking this apart because this little gear can't see. There's nothing on. That's just a straight press fit on that. And this cam, this count wheel for the Quail, there's no screws holding that on. That's just a press fit. So I don't know if I can get that off or not with a couple of screwdrivers. We shall see in a minute. I'm going to have to use a crow's foot on it. It might be too tight to pry that off. Okay, there it comes. Yeah. Mighty tight fit on there. Anyway, we got that. That's Quail. And that one I'm probably going to have to leave in there until I get that that wheel out of there. Okay. Find a replacement for that one. Okay. This one's gonna give me a hard time coming off here. Okay. Okay, Quail. That's Cuckoo side. Okay, Quail side. Man, what is key? Oh, it's that. There we go. Okay. Can't take this one off without, I'm going to get that little gear off of there. Have to use. Okay. And here we are. Now we got a fan. Let's see what we got. I don't know if that's showing up or not, but we got corrosion on that. But there's the pin. There's the warning pin. And here's the little cam. Look at all the rust on there. A lot of rust. Cam feels okay. So now, here are the gears on the Quail side, and that's got some corrosion on it. You got the warning wheel. Now the little difference on the Quail side is there's actually two pins on that wheel. One's the warning pin and one's the stop pin. And then you've got a little cam wheel on that one. And it's got the three little pins on it. Those 3 pins on that wheel are what lift the quail. As this is spinning, it lifts the bellows first, then there's a space, and then 2 short chirps and a space, and so it goes doot 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 doot, and that's caused by the placement of those 3 pins. And then the main wheel. And we'll check those out closely. And then basically the run part of the clock is 3 simple gears. You get the escape wheel, you get the second wheel, and you get the main wheel. Boy, there's a lot of rust in there. And that's it. So there's your plates. Now this one can come out. Okay. This lifts out that way. Okay. Okay. Now we can start cleaning parts. Alright. Couldn't get it off with a stake, but if I put this under here, the shoulder of the arbor, and then lift and twist, that's it. It pulled the little gear off. Okay. Clean the pieces separately. And this is the whole cuckoo mechanism right here. And this is the whole quail mechanism right here. And here is the whole time mechanism here, including the motion works, which is the hour and minute hands. Okay. Looking at some of this stuff. Let's see if we got. You can see there's a bit of garbage in some of these wheels. You know, these are the pins that lift the cuckoo levers and the hammer for the cuckoo side. All of these. See how nice? That's relatively clean in there. Let's look at the difference between that one and this one. This one's fairly clean. Now I'll check these all out. Here's why you gotta take things apart to clean them. Look at the rust here, and then the pinion. Rust here. Need to get that off of there. We need to get rust out of here. Out of this pinion. I'm going to put a little bit of polishing compound down here. And I'm going to take a toothpick and I'm going to clean out those pinions. So, clean that rust out of there. Just polish that garbage out of there. off on a cloth. Take a brush. Clean the residue out. That looks a lot better. Take a little bit of cotton ball. Set that on it. Polish off the rust down in there. Okay, that's good. Get the rust on there. That's after cleaning. Okay, it's been cleaned now, so now what we need to do is we need to see what we're going to have to do as far as bushings go. Okay. Start with the time. Okay, so there's the running gears in, time gears, and see them. Now we can check them out real close for wear. Let's move this back a little bit. Yeah, second wheel is just a little loose there. Not real bad, but as long as we got it apart, that's going to be one that's going to have the most pressure on it. It's on the pinion side, and yeah, it's worn enough to justify putting a new bushing in, so we'll do that one. Actually, before I do anything, I've got to remember to polish all the pivots on this first before I do any bushing work, so I'm going to do that first. Pinion has quite a bit of rust in it. I missed this one, so using a toothpick with some metal polishing compound, getting into each leaf and just polishing it out of there. Okay. That looks better. So, anyway, we have our pivots polished. This is the one we want to replace, is on this side. Seems to be the most worn. So when this is running, well, let's see which way okay. We'll pull a chain this way, so when it's running, this gear is going to run that way, which pushes this pivot in this direction. So the worn side is over here. And the unworn side is over here. So we need to then even out the wear. We need to even out that wear by filing just a little bit in this direction over here. So I'm going to mark that. With just a little dot, so I know where I need to file. And I'm going to do this one completely by hand, so that somebody had requested to see how a bushing is done by hand. So instead of using a drill or the drill press, I'm going to cut this out by hand. Alright, this isn't worn that much. I got a real fine file here. But I'm going to put that in here. And I'm just going to file it out a little bit toward the unworn side, so that I have roughly the same amount worn away on the unworn side as I have on the worn side. And that's so that when I go to ream this out, that we're going to end up with the drill or reamer finding the true center. I also notice, I'm looking at this, that someone has had this apart before, and instead of trying to bush that hole properly, we see that old taking a prick punch and pounding on one side of a hole to try to push it over. It never ends. Okay, so this bushing, this box has a bore 1 millimeter, and we'll put one of those in, and then we will be broaching it out to 1.15, 1.12, what it was. So the outside diameter is 3 millimeters, so we need to ream out the hole in the plate to slightly less than 3 millimeters. So I'll get a reamer that is 2.97 millimeters. That makes the hole slightly undersized, so when we drive the bushing in, it'll be a nice tight friction fit. Alright, to make this a little easier then, I'm going to take a much smaller one just to get started. And just keep it square to the plate. Through with that one. Now I'll put the 2.9s, this is 2.97 reamer in. Make it a little easier to get through. This is why I like using a drill. It can be a little harder to do it this way, but it can be done. Okay. checking to see if that's showing up on the camera. Okay, now we're coming through. This is true hand reaming. Okay, now we've got a hole. And then I will take this bit and we will take the burr off and slightly chamfer that hole because it makes it easier to get the bushing started. Where they pinprick that, it's getting in the way of doing a good job on this. And of course the next thing to do is to have a anvil, flat piece of metal, and now I got to get a bushing out of here, and these are pretty small. There's the bushing. We put it in that hole. We're going to get a little hammer. I'm going to tap that in. And feel of it. Okay. Okay, so there's a bushing that's in the hole, and it has a inside bore diameter of 1 millimeter. This has a diameter, this pivot has a diameter of 1.12. So now the next step is to take a boy, I don't like that pin prick where that, or prick punch, what that did. Anyway, now we got to ream that tiny hole out to fit this, so I've got to get a cutting broach. Small cutting broach. So we got here. This might be the one. That'll go in. Yeah, that'll go in. Okay, so here's a cutting broach. It's got it's 5-sided, and okay, tighten it up. All right. And then what we do, we put it in here, and we turn it, and try to keep it level. I'll go from both sides. See if that's close. Oh, still got a ways to go. So you keep cutting. Okay, now I can feel it's starting to go in. So it's not going to take much to get it to fit. And I'll go to the other side and cut from this side just a bit. Now let's see what we got. Okay, see that goes in. Now, it's just a little tiny bit tight. I just want to take this back out. Just do this tiniest little bit here. And I think we're going to do it. Yep, there we go. Okay. Now we've got a bushing that fits nicely on that. Now before we do anything more, I'm just going to chamfer that to take off that sharp edge. And then I'm going to go in here and I'm going to get a smoothing broach. Let's see if this is right size. Yeah, that's going to work. Okay, so I take the cutting broach out of that pin vise and I put in a smoothing broach. This actually doesn't really cut, as it does smooths out the. I need a tiny bit of oil on this one. Okay. Alright, now the idea here is to do two things. One, smooth any burrs. Smooth any burrs, and also to work harden the hole. Work harden that. Let me work this around a little bit as we go around. But that work hardens that brass. So that it will wear longer. Okay. And that should work well. Goes right in there. And if we put the plates back on, pin. Okay, now that's back in the hole, and it turns freely, and we're going to look at that side now, where that was worn. Let me see, doesn't flop around now, it doesn't move, and it turns freely. The other thing you got to check, what's called end shake. We'll move it back and forth between the plates and make sure that that fits, and that there's room, and looking good. All right, now there's one last check. I'll go ahead and take this back off and I'll put the main wheel back in. Okay. And then we're going to put this back on. And something really kind of weird about these pillars that I don't like. They don't want to go on real good. I think there's a burr on one of the threads or something that's catching. Okay, it's all the way in now. Okay. Now when we look at that bushing we just replaced and we move the wheel now, you don't see very much movement in that at all. So, not worn anymore. Nice new bushing in it, and should run just fine. But that's a hand bushing. No drills, no drill presses, no bushing machines, and that's what's meant by bushing by hand. At any rate, this is all that's involved in the train that keeps time. You do is you put a anchor on here and hook a pendulum up to it and a weight on the main wheel, and that would be a clock that would keep time. Now what we have to do, of course, is we have to now look at the other trains and see what kind of wear we got there. Alright, we're going to start simple here and try to work a little more complicated. Here we have basically the 4 gears that make up the Quail train. You've got the main wheel, which is a chain wheel. You've got the second wheel that contains 2 parts. That second wheel contains the pins that actually lift the bellows to make the quail do its chirping every 15 minutes. And it also contains a cam, a brass cam, that, there's the cam in there, that lifts another lever that's currently not installed. And then you have the third wheel that is a bit strange. Normally there'd be one pin called the warning pin, and it would be in 2 different positions, one in a stop position and one in a warning position. But in this case, this is the warning pin, and then on the other side of that wheel is another pin that you can see kind of down below. That is the actual stop pin. So the 2 pins kind of split the function that is normally done by one single pin. And then of course the last wheel in this is the governor or the fan. Alright, let's start out with just one of these levers in place. This lever right here is the lever that is lifted by the minute wheel. And here's the minute wheel. You see the minute in the back of this pipe. There are 4 pins. And so as the minute goes around from 12 to 12, it's going to make one complete rotation. So in that one complete rotation, each of those 4 pins is going to move in a circle. And those pins represent every 15 minutes. And what they do is as the pin passes underneath this lever, it lifts it like this. Let's put this on here so you can see, and I'm going to rotate this. You see that lever being lifted and dropped, lifted and dropped, lifted and dropped. Okay? That's what starts the whole function. So as this gets lifted, it does only one other thing. This particular lever right now is only doing one other thing. And that can be seen inside here on that same arbor. This arbor is where that front lever is attached. And on that same arbor is another lever. So I'm going to rotate that minute wheel again. And as that lever on the front gets lifted, you see there's a lever in here that gets lifted. Alright? And I'm going to leave it all the way down. And the function of that is this. If this gear train is running, I'm going to try to do this by hand. This gear train is running, you'll see that wheel, that third wheel, with the pins on it. The pin is rotating round and round and round. But as that lever on the front is lifted, that lever in there gets in the way of that pin. It's kind of hard to do this, but it gets in the way of the pin so that now you see the pin comes up against it. See how that pin stops right there? As that lever's been lifted in its way. That stops the gear train. And this position is called the warning position, because that lever is only in the way as long as the pin on the minute wheel is lifting that long lever on the front of the movement. I'm going to move that minute wheel until that drops off. Now, see, once that lever moves out of the way, that wheel can continue to move till the next 15 minutes when it's in the way again. Okay, so that's the sole function there of that pin and that lever, is to temporarily interfere with the movement of that wheel. Okay, that's called the warning condition when that pin is stopped. Okay, so that's the function of that lever, and it's important that that lever be not so bent. If it's bent too much, it may not lift high enough to stop that pin, or that pin can be bent and not contact, so then you'd have a problem where the quail would not go into warning. Once it was released from its stop position, it would just continue to call until the weight fell all the way to the floor. Okay. There's one other thing that lever also does, and we have to install the brass lever now to see what the other job that this lever carries out. The lever we're going to now install looks like this, and you see a number of parts to it. This sits outside the plates, and this lever actually is the lever that will push on the lever that makes the bird go out. That lever that we saw inside that stops the warning pin is also going to be lifting on this. So when this lever is installed, that same lever that stops the warning pin, when it moves up, is also going to be pushing up on this lever, raising this thing up. Okay? And that's important, because the cam on that second wheel that's inside the plates is going to catch on this part of this brass lever, this part right here. That allows, there's a notch in that cam, and that allows on the cam, that allows us to drop into the notch. And this little protrusion out here is what catches that second pin that's on the other side of the warning wheel from the warning pin. This then interferes with the movement of that warning level, warning gear in the whole train, stops the whole train when it's in the stop position between the times that the quail is operating. So this thing is going to serve two functions as well. When it's in the notch on that cam, then this part of the lever is going to be low enough that the pin on that wheel, on that third wheel, can catch here and keep the movement, the motion, or keep the works from running. When this gets lifted here by that warning pin or warning level, that's going to move this protrusion out of the way of the pin on the other side, on this side of the wheel, and allow it to start rotating, and that lever that's been lifted from that we looked at just prior to this will then interfere with that wheel moving any further. So we're going to get about a half rotation out of it, actually a little less than half rotation. It's about a 1/8 of a rotation. From the stopped position when the pin is on this part to the warning position when the other pin is held by the warning lever. This lever here is going to go into the count wheel, which we'll talk about later. So I have to install this in so you can see how it functions. Right, now with this lever now in place, that brass one, it is riding right now in the notch of that brass cam. At the same time, and it's hard to see, the pin on the inside, I can't find it, there it is. There it is, okay. The pin on the inside is riding on that protrusion. You can see it down there. Alright, so that's the stop position. Okay, when the minute hand begins to lift, the pins on the back of the minute hand begin to lift that lever on the front, you'll see that it's also lifting that brass cam, and that protrusion moves out of the way of that pin. I'm going to try to operate this with my thumb. There's the pin. I'm going to lift that lever slowly. You see the lever being lifted. The one that's going to move in the way of that other pin on the right side of the wheel, and it's lifting the brass lever at the same time, and that's going to release that pin. Releases, hits on the warning pin, warning lever. Now the lever on the front drops off of that minute pin, and it can run until that brass lever falls back into the notch on the cam, gets in the way of the pin on the left side of the wheel, and that stops the movement. So we go from there, lock, to warning, to run, to lock. Now you can see that if that lever is even slightly bent out of the way, bent wrong, something's not going to lift at the right time. Those two lift at the same time. There you see that pin move, hit the raised lever. The other pin has been released. That's a warning. That's the warning position. It runs, does its quailing, goes back into lock. There we are. Next 15 minutes, warning, run, lock. Warning, run, lock. Warning, whoop, warning, run, and lock. Warning, run, lock. And that's how that works. The next most important element in the quail side is this little count wheel. This determines how many times the quail will call. So if this is on here and we run this, can't fall into the brass cam until this lever falls onto the count wheel. So now we hit it, make it go. Here we're going to do the 3/4 hour. It's chirping 3 times. till it gets there. Okay, then in the next 15 minutes, on the front of the movement, we have that lever being lifted, goes into warning, drops off, goes into run, and it can't go back into lock until that lever falls there. And now the brass lever can fall into the notch on the cam as well. The pin on the warning wheel hits that protrusion on the brass lever, and the whole thing comes to stop. Next 15 minutes, we get warning, we get run, and we get stop. That's a quarter hour. We get warning, run, stop. Warning, run, stop. Warning, run. There's 4 chirps now, see? And finally, stop. And now the next time it goes, it's going to be the quarter hour again. So the bird is only going to chirp the one time. That's your quail movement. In this movement, the next step in understanding it is this long lever that comes from the cuckoo side. In a cuckoo movement, the cuckoo would be tripped by a lever on the front that is now taking on the function of starting the quail sequence. So what has to happen is the quail has to function, call, and then it's up to the quail then to trip the cuckoo after it's done. And the way it's done is through this lever. Hard to do this way, but alright, the quail is calling. Right now it's calling the 3/4 hour. 3/4 hour. Now it's going to call the hour and watch what happens. Maybe. Here we go. 3/4 hour comes. Okay. Cuckoo is now set. The quail is now done, and the cuckoo starts to cuckoo. Okay. As we look at the structure and function of the cuckoo side, you've got the chain wheel, and it's got the pegs on it that are going to lift the cuckoo wires, cuckoo bellows. Okay, and that goes there. The next wheel it goes in, just like on the quail side, you've got a wheel with a brass cam on it. And that is going to be here, and that's going to help to maintain the control of the cuckoo. That goes there. We want it in that position. Then we've got a lever. This one's made out of steel, but it's got the same function of the brass lever on the quail side. This lever's going to go. This part's going to go on the outside of the plate, and it's going to go into the count wheel that counts the number of hours. This is going to be a stop pin for our stop lever right here for the warning pin. This will be the stop position. There's only one pin on the warning wheel, and that's going to drop to this protrusion in the warning condition. This wheel is going to go on a pin right here, and it's going to, in the lock position, be in that cam. I don't know if I can hold those in position. The warning wheel, this has one pin on it, And that's got to be in a position about like so, near the bottom, so that the other one you have that goes in here is the fan or governor, like so. So there are the main levers. Now, what trips this is that lever we already looked at that came from, goes over to the quail side. The quail is going to lift that, and this is going to be inside here, and it's going to do a couple things. When this is lifted by the quail side, then this is going to be lifted, and it's going to lift the pin out of its locked position. And it works just like the quail side, only the difference here is the count wheel here, instead of having just 4 segments that counts quarter hours, this is going to have 12 segments that counts out the hours. And actually it's 12 segments for the hours, but it also includes a gap or space in between each hour for the half hour. That's how that works. You got to make sure that when you set this up that the notch in the brass cam is very close to where this is going to be, at the same time that the pin and that warning lever is right there. So those have to be like that. If they're not, then the thing is going to be out of sequence, and it's going to stop, or the cuckoo is going to just keep on cuckooing till the weight goes to the floor. We need to clean out pivot holes. And every pivot hole has to be cleaned. The way they are cleaned is I use a toothpick, quail side, and there's why you clean it. I don't know if you can see that or not. Get any residue out of those holes that might be there. And we will just proceed that way. We go through each and every pivot hole and clean them out. Wheels in place. Movement up here in the test stand running, and that's what's the function. I'm going to move the minute hand. It's just finished the hour, so we're going to come up to the quarter hour. Then you're going to watch in the front, the pins on the front of the minute hand are going to lift a lever that will trip the quail, which in this picture is on the right hand side. You can see the time, the count wheel there. And so let me move this down now to the quarter hour. Alright. So there was the quail called once. Now we move toward the half hour. Move it down. God, it went into warning already. It goes into warning pretty early. It's in warning. Lifting. Lifting. And it's going to fall off. And we're going to see the quail call twice. And then we're going to see the cuckoo kick in, because that pin right there is going to lift that lever that trips the cuckoo side. And there we go. Okay, we're going to put this movement back in the case. Let's just set this in here for right now. Alright, so put that up there. I'll start sorting out the chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. thread the chains with holes. Okay, I had to fill the holes. They were all too soft and mushy. So I just did a little baking soda and super glue. That fills them and dry real quick. That way. And we need shall see if I finally have those bellows in. It took a lot of wrestling and moving around, but hopefully that's going to work. There we go. And we'll go set it up and see if we can see what it sounds like. This is the quarter hour. Now the half hour. 3/4 hour, and finally the hour. Let's move in here so you can now see the mechanism working. All right, we're going to go watch the quail side. Quarter hour, half hour, and 3/4 hour. Now on the hour, again, watch the quail 4 times, and then that pin will come up and trip the long lever to get the cuckoo going. And that's it. That's how a cuckoo quail works.